Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am actually really excited to film this video because I feel like lately I've been doing a lot of challenges or reading vlogs, and I haven't sat down and just chatted with you guys about all the books that I've been reading. And I didn't actually film a wrap up last month, so this month we're getting twice the books, twice the fun in an August and July wrap up. Yeah, that sounds right. I've read 8 books in July and August. I don't have physical copies of all of them. I have physical copies of some. One of them I borrowed, some of them I read on my Kindle. But yeah, I'm so excited, and let's just talk about it. So the first book that I read in July was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This was my first Frida McFadden book that I'd ever read. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and I heard it was a pretty quick, easy thriller, so I thought I would just go for it. I read this book, no joke, in 2 or 3 days, which is really fast for me. I'm not a huge thriller girl, but oh my gosh, this one, you guys, I literally was dying to know what happened next. But if you're not familiar with The Housemaid, it's basically about this woman who is looking for a job and she can't find one, or she won't get hired because she has kind of a troubling background, we'll say. I don't want to spoil anything. And she ends up getting hired as a housemaid for this wealthy family. But things kind of just start off really creepy. And one thing that it says on the back of the book, this is not a spoiler, is that by the time that she realized there wasn't a lock on her door, it was already too late. And so I feel like that definitely gives off the creepy thriller vibes. I ended up giving that book a 4.5. I really, really enjoyed it. The ending wasn't 100% my favorite thing ever. I felt like some people were really shocked by it. I saw parts of it coming, and so that's the only reason it got knocked down half a star. But overall, fantastic book. Highly recommend. Started the month of July off really strong. So that was The Housemaid. The next book I read, oh my God, you guys, this book was so good. This one I listened to on my library app. I checked out the audiobook, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Holy crap. I have read now 3 Taylor Jenkins Reid books, I think, and I have given all of them 5 stars. And somehow, you guys, I liked this one the best. This is a 6 star if the other ones are 5 stars. This book is so good. It's been going around for a long time now, I want to say, but it's basically about the forming of this band called Daisy Jones and the Six, and it goes through the whole story of that band getting started, but it's told in an interview style. So you get to hear from each of the characters. And the audiobook especially was really, really cool because you had different actors for each of the characters. So it felt so alive and just so real. And I was crying and so moved and all of the feels at the end. I could talk about this book for literally ever. This was like I said, 5-6 star read for me. So if you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend that you do it because it was awesome. Okay, the next book I do have a physical copy of, and hopefully some of you guys will recognize this from the last TBR video that I did. I did successfully read it. And that book is Trust by Adnan Diaz. This book was definitely a little bit out of my comfort zone, we'll say. I was gifted this book. For me, showing love to people is reading the books that they give me. If someone lends me a book, it automatically moves to the top of my TBR because I want them to see that I care about them. And the same thing goes for books that are gifted to me, even though I don't have to give them back to them. I think you get the idea. This book was gifted to me, and so I made it a priority to read it. It basically follows this couple, and they're living through the 1920s. And at the end of the 1920s in America, there is the crash in the stock market, and it looks at how this couple's also extremely wealthy, and it kind of calls into question how they got their money. It also examines things like which character can you trust? Like everyone has their own version of the story. This book is broken down into 4 smaller books, if that makes sense. And each book takes on like a different perspective, and they're all kind of woven together. And I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. The plot and like the characters I actually really enjoyed, but the reading experience for me wasn't like a 5 stars. It just like took quite a bit of mental energy, I would say. So yeah, but if you're like down for that, I would highly recommend. The actual story and storytelling in here were beautiful. It's just the reading experience was a little bit like harder on my brain, I guess. I'm trying to figure out where I should put this. I guess I'll put it down here. Ooh, okay, I already did a vlog on both of these books, so we're not going to talk about them too much. Plus, you've probably heard a million other people talk about these books, so I won't bore you here. But the next 2 books that I read, I think end of July, early August, potentially, was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas and A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd and 3rd and a half. I don't know. That's what it said on Goodreads, okay? Books in the ACOTAR series. I have been slowly making my way through the ACOTAR iconic viral fantasy series. I have always considered myself to be a very strong fantasy girl. Fantasy has just been like my favorite genre. Like, you know, genres come and go, but fantasy has consistently ranked towards the top of my favorites. So I'd been wanting to get through this series, and it is definitely a 5-star series so far. I am absolutely loving it. This book, actually, A Court of Wings and Ruin, is my favorite in the series so far. I loved this. This was definitely a 5-star read. It's known for being like the political intrigue book of the series, which I didn't know that about myself, that I liked politics and fantasy, but apparently I do. And then this book, I think I gave like 3 stars, 3.5 stars. It's just a novella, and like there wasn't a ton of plot in it, so I didn't want to, you know, give it a higher rating than that. But altogether, I am loving this series. I'm not going to dive into it. If you want to know what the series is about or my like further thoughts on these, definitely check out my reading vlog. I have a playlist. I'll link it down below. And yeah, if you haven't read ACOTAR, go do it because it's friggin' awesome. Next, I actually also have a video about these next 2 books, but I loved them so much, so I am still very excited to talk about them in this video. The next book that I read in Oh no, are we still in July? Guys. All of those were in July, and the next book I'm about to talk about was also in July. And that book was Verity by Colleen Hoover. This book I also had lent to me by one of my friends, and so naturally it just like immediately moved to the top of my TBR so I could read it and tell her my thoughts and give it back to her. And I really enjoyed reading this book. It's one of Colleen Hoover's only thrillers. I think she has a few, but she's definitely known for the romance genre, and I really loved it. The plot twists were like, I was trying so hard to guess what they were, but I still couldn't figure it out, and I really definitely enjoyed them, probably because I didn't see them coming. But Verity is basically about this woman. She is an author, and her life is kind of just gone to crap, for lack of a better description, and she gets this like kind of mysterious request to do some work, and so she, you know, comes to find that this other author, very famous, renowned author, was in some kind of accident, and she needs someone to finish writing her like famous mystery series or her famous book series. The author that was in the accident is named Verity, and this new author girly is like, okay, I'll finish your book series for you. And the story goes from there. And honestly, I don't know if it's because there's actually a lot of similarities between the two, or if I just like felt this way. I don't know. But I actually found a lot of similarities between Verity and The Housemaid. So let me know if you've read those, if you felt that way too. I don't know if it was just me, but Verity, again, it was really good. I gave it 4 or 4.5. I gave it 4 stars. It was really good, very twisty, highly recommend. Whew, we're nearing the end, you guys. Wow, this is exciting. The next book that I read, I was in a Colleen Hoover little binge. The next book that I read was It Ends With Us. I loved this book. If you watched my video about reading Colleen Hoover books for a week, you would know that this book was so good. Like, I absolutely loved this book. Literally for days after I read this, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm still dying to read It Starts With Us. But for anyone who hasn't read this book, I'm sure you've heard of it. If you haven't read it yet, It Ends With Us is a book about relationship abuse, and it's really unique in its storytelling because it follows this girl named Lily, and she like falls in love with this guy who she meets, and he seems really great and nice and fine, but through the story you kind of come to see that maybe he's not the best guy. And so I really admired that like element and how the story was told. But it has like an extra fun layer because it incorporates this other timeline where Lily is reading her old journal entries from when she was younger and falling in love with a boy in her town named Atlas. And so you have the like present timeline and the past timeline, and it's really, really beautiful. And this is not a spoiler. It's literally on the back of the book. The boy from her like childhood, high school or something, she ends up running into him like in the present timeline. And it's so, so good. Like, I am begging you to read this. I think I gave this 4.5 stars, but I feel like it should be a 5-star read. Like, I think I'm going to bump it to 5 because it was just so good. So yeah, I'm not going to say it again. Just, you know what to do. Or on the last book. This is exciting. The last book that I read in the month of August is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Anyone that's been on my channel for a little while now knows that I have been meaning to get around to this for the longest time. It had been on the top of like my mental TBR, but I didn't have a physical copy of it yet, and it's not on Kindle Unlimited or anything, so I ended up thrifting it, just best day ever. And ever since then, I've been putting it at the top of my TBR and then for some reason avoiding it, but I did it, guys. I did it. I read it, and I'm very happy that I did. The House on the Cerulean Sea, I would describe it as more of like a cozy fantasy. I don't really know if that's actually how it gets described, but it's about this like middle-aged man, Linus Baker. We love Linus over here. And he works for the Department of Magical Youth. And his job is basically to make sure that these magical children who live at orphanages are safe and living in like a comfortable environment. And so his upper management, in my opinion, it's pretty hilariously called extremely upper management. They send him to this island that has like especially magical and potentially dangerous children. And he needs to make sure that everything on the island is good and okay. And I thought this book was really, really sweet. The children, the like magical kids in here are absolutely adorable. I loved how much you got to like know and care for each of their characters. I also loved the caretaker on the island. Linus's character was such like a silly guy, and I thought the character development there was so, so sweet. I ended up actually only giving this 3 stars. Maybe I'd bump it to a 3.5, mostly because I just felt like it was a little bit slow. And I think that's the point. Like, this book isn't meant to be like this like high speed, crazy, like heist fantasy, whatever. Like, no, it's about this guy who's going to check in on these magical children. And it's like very character driven. And for me, in a fantasy, I prefer like very action packed stories where like literally the world is going to end if these characters don't get their stuff together, you know? So this book in general, so sweet, so adorable, would recommend to literally everybody. It's just for me, there were times where it wasn't really holding my attention. I also went back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book for this one. I think I actually might have enjoyed the audiobook a little bit better than the physical book, but safe to say, I really did enjoy this book. It was just so sweet. Oh, where's my Kindle? I literally brought my Kindle out here, you guys, and I didn't even show it to you at all. That is so silly. Oh well. Those were the 8 books that I read in the months of July and August. Actually, on the day that I'm filming this video, it's August 24th, which I know is still pretty early in the month. I just started Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and I'm really enjoying it. But it's really chunky, and I'm betting it's going to take me about a week to read. So I think it's safe to film this video. I think we're good. I don't think I'll finish that until September. Yeah, I think that's all for this video. I'm hoping to film a TBR video soon. I don't know if I should do like the TBR jar or like a wheel, or if you guys should vote. So let me know which videos of those you guys like to watch. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you're having a great day and a great reading month. Okay, you guys, bye.